Here.
Councilman Baldwin.
Here.
Councilman Kavanaugh.
Here.
Councilman Coyne.
Here.
Councilwoman Fontana.
Here.
Councilman Thomas.
Here.
Is that a quorum?
Thank you. I appreciate everybody being here today. I know it's very important to all of you, and in different ways. What I want you to realize that this is a workshop that is for staff and city council to discuss this new proposed ordinance. If at the end of our meeting, if time permits, at the end of our meeting, if time permits, we may take a few comments from the audience, but you will have time for public comment when we go to our city council meeting to vote on this ordinance. This is not, today there will be no votes. There's several issues here that we feel like in a short-term rental that we need to discuss that have become issues throughout our city. The three major things is the trash, the parking, and the noise. Those are the three major things that we are trying to address today and get under control. So with that said, I'll move into our meeting. What I would like to do, if it's okay with council, is that we will start off and just take it section by section and discuss it. So Mr. Mahaney, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you can begin by telling us about the short-term rental.
Right. Well, what we did in drafting this is everybody at the department head level was involved. And basically, what they did is they looked at a multitude of ordinances all the way from California to South Carolina to whatever. And we basically, picked and choose from various ones to try to assemble this, and had some internal debate about, some of the numbers and that kind of thing. But, none of this is really cast in stone. It's your ordinance, as far as, what the ultimate end product is on this. And, we can just work through it in sections. The reason we came up with the permit aspect is because business license is an excess tax in the state of South Carolina. And there's a very set schedule that has to exist if you try to enforce these issues through the business license process. What do I mean by that? Well, all of a sudden you got to send certified letters and you got to wait 14 days. And most importantly, this body setting just like this has to be the deciding agent when we make a recommendation to pull a business license. So it's a very cumbersome, weldy, it's just not good for what we're dealing with. Because we're averaging about 2,000 complaints. Y'all need to know that we're averaging about 2,000 complaints that are pretty much kind of split. About 1,000 or so of those are loud noise, and 400 or 500 of them are trash, and the rest are the parking issues. So it is and many times we'll get emails. I've gotten emails from people that I'm sure that are in this audience, and when they send the email or they call, many times it's not about one house. I may get an email that has 3 different houses in Windy Hill that they're experiencing problems with. So it is a big issue. There's roughly 5,000 short-term rentals in the city of North Myrtle Beach. About 550 of those are on a lot of platforms, whether it be Air, B&B, whether it be HomeAway, vacation rental by owner, whatever. And they're all over the city. But because, that's the other problem with this experience. It's not just beachfront. They're in Palmetto Shores, they're in Pine Acres, they're all over. Can everyone hear me okay? I have all the atrium, can you hear me? How y'all guys doing back there? Okay. So anyway, that is part of the problem. Now, some of the local companies do a great job. We've tried for the last few years to work through these issues without having to get into a permit for short-term rentals. And some companies have done very well, and some companies have not done so well. Again, I'm going to give you an example which some of you are familiar with. We've had meetings with all the realtors before on various issues. And, for instance, Elliott Realty and Hank Thomas did a great job on the parking. What they've done is, each one of the rental units, they have a number of parking spaces that they can have there. And, if there's room for 4 cars and they show up with 8, they give them 4 passes, and the others have to go to an overflow lot. You've seen those lots, for instance, on Sea Mountain Highway. It says overload, parking area provided by Bullno, Thomas, Elliott Realty. That's worked very well in some aspects. With some other companies, not so great. And I mean, that's one of the reasons we're here. So anyway, I don't know if you just want to kind of go down section by section. And
What I'd like to do, I will start, and I'll read the section, and then I would like for you and staff to explain to how you came up with these comments and these suggestions. First of all, we need to know what class there are, their definitions for a short-term rental. A person who agrees to be the primary contact person and manage short-term rental unit and is so designated on the permit. Class 1, short-term rental, is a dwelling unit offered for overnight accommodations that is rented for a period of less than 30 days for financial or any other consideration. Class 1 is a single-family home, a duplex unit, or a single-family attached unit, such as a townhouse, including whole houses or individual rooms within a house. Class 2 is a dwelling unit within a multifamily structure. Class C is hotels, motels, lodging, and boarding houses are not included in the definition of short-term rentals. So we'll move into the permit required. It should be unlawful for any person to create, establish, operate, maintain, or otherwise be engaged in the business of advertising or renting a unit for short-term rental for financial or any other consideration unless a current and valid permit has been issued under the terms of this article. The short-term rental is an annual application. It's an initial application that is an annual renewal application that must be submitted for each property within 60 days of the permit expiration date. Renewal application submitted later than 60 days prior to the permit expiration will still be processed, but the renewal may be delayed beyond the original renewal date. With the application, a copy of current general liability insurance, proof of property tax payment, and a property owner acknowledgement form are also required. If previously rented on a short-term basis, proof of sales and use, accommodations, and hospitality taxes paid are required. The permit fee shall be $100. Follow the provision with this ordinance are supplemental to other city ordinances, rather than building codes, business license, fire codes, garbage collection, stormwater drainage, and parking signage and impervious surface ratios. Okay, Mr. Mahaney, how did you get to the permits?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I understand.
Well, what made the staff think it was best to go with a permit? Is there a way to identify these houses?
Well, absolutely. I mean, and Sarah can maybe speak to this if you need additional information, but we're constantly, we actually have a firm that we data mine, that we pay to data mine that, you know, surveys these rental platforms, whether it be HomeAway, vacation rental by owner, or whatever, and by computer programs and such. If we spot one that's advertising, hey, come stay in this house, it's least 20 or whatever, and it compares it to our business license and they don't have a business license, that's a trigger for us to reach out to them and say, wait a minute, it requires a permit to do that. And, you know, we also, when we find them, there is a penalty. We go back a number of years, and, you know, they have to pay with interest if it's been going on and they have not been doing that. But, you know, this is nothing new. This permit process that, you know, we've got a hybrid here, but this is going on in Mount Pleasant. It's going on in Folly Beach. It's going on in California. You know, a lot of them are doing this because of the problems that are experienced with short-term rentals. Sir, I recognize that.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying we're not in California.
Yeah, we recognize that, but we can look at their ordinances.
Sir, please do not holler out. That's okay. Just don't holler out. We're here to work through this. Okay. What will the short-term permit require?
Well, there will be a permit that, you know, will have a variety of information. Jim, would you like to cover that, or someone else, maybe in detail?
Jim, if you want to pick up at 222, where it basically tells, I want everyone to hear what is going to be required of them and with permit.
Basically, Mayor, the whole purpose of the permit is so we can identify, track, and manage these rentals throughout the city. If, you know, we can't respond to complaints, we can't understand where to allocate resources to help manage these unless we know where they are. And also, because of the difficulty of enforcing things through a business license, we need a permit system, and that permit then can be issued, and it can also be revoked if you have a series of offenses against the ordinance. And that can be done a lot more efficiently and effectively than having to go through the process to revoke a business license. Every ordinance that we study, and we study dozens of them, has a permit system within it, and it's basically an information gathering, so we know who's operating it, we know where it is, who the responsible party is, and we set the permit fee in ours significantly lower than any other ordinance we found. And you know, for example, I think Mount Pleasant's fees were more than double what we're proposing. Just to give you one example. Same for Wilmington. And you know, this is not a permit system designed to generate revenue for the city. It's a permit system designed to just pay the minimal cost that it takes to effectively administer and register these units and get them tracked and identified. So it's a cost covering permit fee.
Okay. Now, I'm going to move down to section 223. It tells you exactly what is expected. So upon submission of a complete short-term rental class 1 permit application, a city staff person will schedule a visit to the property in the presence of the owner or the responsible party to inspect and verify the information presented in the application is accurate. The permit application fee of $20 shall be paid prior to the inspection taking place. The fee is non-refundable. Where the application is approved or rejected. The permit shall not be approved without an inspection being completed. The city reserves the right to reinspect the property if circumstances relating to house size, parking, occupancy limits, trash collections, or other elements change, or to ascertain if an alleged violation warrants the issuance of a warning or a strike. Class 2 short-term rentals are exempt from the exception from inspection process. All right, we'll move to 2 through 4. Short-term rental maximum occupancy. The maximum overnight occupancy for any short-term rental shall be based on available parking for the requirement of section 10-14. A maximum of 2.5 overnight guests per legal parking space shall be permitted. For purposes of this section, overnight shall mean from midnight to 6 a.m. We'll take the short-term maximum occupancy and talk about the parking. Council, would anybody like to speak up about the parking?
Well, if you don't mind, Mayor, let me just kind of tell you how we got there. We're not wedded to 2.5. There was a great deal of staff debate. Should it be 2? Should it be 4? Or something in between? And, 2.5 was my decision. It's just a starting point. There's no strong feelings from us whether it's 3 or 4, but, this is what we're trying to get to. If the advertisement on the internet says it sleeps 24 and you pick 4, okay, 24 divided by 4, where's your 6 parking spaces? If we go out to inspect and there's room in the driveway for 3, okay, where are you parking the other 3 cars? Show us your lot, show us your lease, whatever. If you pick 3 and it sleeps 24, where's your 8 parking spaces? All right. So that, we can get, that resolved, because, what some of these complaints are when it's parking, we'll get a call from a residential neighborhood where that person has decided to put their house on a rental platform, and we'll show up and there's 12 cars parked in the front yard. And, you're getting calls, I'm getting calls. That's what this is aimed at, managing this problem. So we're fine. If it's 3, if it's 4, what do you want?
Well, and under this ordinance, it would not be allowed to count your front yard as your parking space.
No, it's got to be like a paved driveway or whatever. Jim, you want to elaborate on that? You can't park in the flower beds and that kind of thing. I mean.
Yes, section 7-226B says no parking shall be permitted on grass or in landscape beds. The spaces have to be paved with some kind of dust-free surface or concrete or asphalt, or improved in some way. Granite pavers, crushed stone, things like that. They have to be an improved parking space that meets the dimensional requirements of our ordinances. And what's different for this, as opposed to when you come in and apply for a coffee shop, for example, that a car parking behind another car, we would not allow that if it's a commercial business, because somebody's blocking in somebody. But generally, like families renting a house, it's not that big a deal if somebody parks behind another family member. They just say, "Hey, John, go move your car." So we allow stacking of one car behind another, which is an arrangement we would not permit in any other kind of commercial establishment. So yes, if you might remember back in March when we were first discussing short-term rentals, we had a fairly complicated formula worked out where we were counting the number of sleeping areas and the number of bedrooms, and there was a lot of debate about what was a sleeping area, because you'd have offices that would suddenly be converted into bedrooms. So it was very, very difficult to get our arms around regulating them based on sleeping areas. So we decided to keep it simple and say, let's let the applicant decide what their maximum occupancy is, and the criteria that we'll judge whether that's reasonable or not is, do you have enough parking spaces to support that many people for your occupancy. And if you can prove that you have it, then we'll be allowed to have that number of maximum occupancy.
So in other words, if you don't have that much space for the required parking, you have to prove that you have somewhere, you have off parking.
Yes, ma'am, we do allow a combination of on-site and off-site parking. If they choose to take advantage of off-site parking, they just have to provide us, as part of their application process, they have to provide sufficient evidence, documentation that they have a lease that they can use off-premise spaces, and if that has to be maintained, then that will be checked every year during the renewal, to see that they still have that.
Or that they own it. I mean, they may own a piece of ground that they can park
Sure.
off-site.
Sure. Staff, do you have any comments now?
Actually, I would like to see added in here, because I know I have an issue with this, and when you go and I get complaints about it, I would like to see added in this section of, 7-226 about no parking on our sidewalks. Because I get complaints about that, because people park and block the sidewalks and let you go if there's a sidewalk on the street. Can we add that in there somewhere?
So,
Yes, ma'am, we can change either A or B to state that parking must be entirely contained on private property and must not extend to the right of way.
I mean, I'd like some direction on the number. I mean, I've had calls, I'm sure you've had calls. I mean, pick a number.
Can I make some of one of the things we're doing here is we have one section that we talk about parking. And what we're doing with the creation of the 2.5 are two things: parking and occupancy. I'd like to divide them out. Look at parking alone. The parking, if they have valid space, they designate it on the permit application. The permit application then would have someone go out and review it and would verify that number. The parking should not be a number picked out of some average. It's visible, so it can be verified with the application. So you have two things involved in it. If you look at section 10.4, when you talk about parking, take out the 2.5 or any calculation is not valid. It's really what can you physically do, right? Now, you can use it, something like a 2.5 for the other thing that you're doing, maximum occupancy. But that's a different issue. And if you split them, you allow a lot of things to happen nice and easy. So what I recommend is that we drop on the rental, section 10.4, when we talk about parking, we drop all references to the 2.5. It's on valid space, provide valid parking space. And there's the rules on how you calculate.
I don't think that we as a council should or even have the right to decide how many occupancies can stay in the house. That would be to the realtor or to the house owner. He has to decide if he's going to put 2 beds in a bedroom and 1 bedroom. So
So then if you're doing it that way, then you're taking the same approach towards maximum occupancy. Let the person who is filling out the application designate how many parking spaces he has legally. What he would do in the overflow. And as far as occupancy, he defines what his maximum occupancy is. While we review the permit, we then can decide whether we want to let it go.
That's how we structured it. We allow them to state what their desired occupancy is. And then we go and verify that they have the parking to support that. If they don't, they're gonna have to change their desired occupancy.
But see, what you do by putting 2.5 in here is you confuse both the parking issue and the occupancy. make the person filling out the form designate what he has legally. And in the verification application, then you verify it. All right, so you don't have any, it's nothing guess, nothing ratio, it's strictly physical. How many parking spaces do you have, and how many people do you think you need to put into that area? And then when you go out there, then you look at it and see both issues. In other words, instead of defining the random, all I'm saying is take out everything now, down to 2.5. Just let the application fill out what he thinks he has, and you verify it.
Well,
Put the burden on you.
All right, first of all, we gotta get everybody on the same page. Bob, you're not using the one with the agenda. So when you refer to these numbers,
Yeah,
nobody else has a clue what you're talking about. That was the first look of confusion, because you're not using the one we sent you. Everybody else is. So, well, the one that first attached on the agenda is the one that we need.
I think he's on the same.
Well, but when you say section 10-22, they're looking at me like, what is the
Well, what section, but I know what you're talking about.
I apologize, Bob, perhaps I'm misunderstanding, but I've had difficulty understanding how what you're suggesting differs from what we proposed.
Well, I think what I'm trying to say is that you have, parking is driving occupancy. First, what we look at in the past occupancy.
No.
I think we're parking with.
But look, I'm not coming at, look, I'm trying to keep it simple. I know where we ended up when we got into what is a sleeping area, and what is a hall, and how many square feet, and 200 of this, whatever. Why not start with what's on the internet? If it says it sleeps 24 or 28 or 52, whatever it says it sleeps, whatever number you pick, whether it's 4, whether it's 5, whatever per car, how many parking spaces? Mayor, I don't know.
Now, this, Kingsley.
Because of that, that has been a source of continuing conflict, all right? And again, we're trying to keep it simple, all right? So, I mean, it's whatever you want to do, but I think that's going the wrong direction. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We will try to enforce whatever you come up with.
Yeah, I think the staff is on the right track. I think what they've done here is they've started something, we recognize we basically key problems in town, the noise, the trash, and parking. And I think what the staff has done in regard to naming that number, I think is a good idea. And just what is that magic number? And I'm just thinking about, we have a lot of early condominiums that were built, literally hundreds, not maybe thousands maybe, that were built back in the late 70s and early 80s. And at that time, we had a parking requirement of 1.5 spaces per unit for 2 bedrooms. Typically, a 2-bedroom will do at least 6 normally. If they have a rollout, so they might get 8. I'm thinking if you did 4, that would cover all your 2 bedrooms, and we wouldn't have an issue with that. And also at 4, we have a lot of raised beach houses. Some of these things are 34 years old, typically 4 bedrooms. They'll sleep anywhere from 8 to 12. Occasionally, you might have one bigger, maybe 16. And there again, the raised beach houses, they're able to double over their parking. They can put 4 cars on there. 16 people, which is going to probably meet 90% of the needs of that house. Now, when they have, just because you have 4 people per car, in the summertime, a lot of families, the kids will bring their cars, so if you may only have 8 or 9 people there, you can still have 8 cars. And at that point, that's where we give those guests, or we always give the guests, the parking permits for that particular property. And if they have other kids, or they have too many cars, then they go to the overflow parking. But that, I think we're on the right track. It's just a magic number. And for me, I'm thinking to meet to meet the requirements or meet the, since we have so many existing properties, to meet those properties without causing a real undue hardship, a lot of confusion. This 4 might be a number that could work. Then if somebody, and it does kind of help limit the number of people in the house. So you don't want to have a house that sleeps 28 people and only got 4 spaces. So I think it's a step in the right direction. I like what they're doing. And I think if we do stick with the number, when they go get their permit now, which I'll ask another question in a minute. When they get their permit now, they'll say, okay, we've got 4 spaces, and Jim will go down and verify, and it meets, has to be on, they can park under the house, it's Sway's Beach House, and if it all fits within the property, but not parking in the grass.
Yeah, and that's the whole purpose of the inspection, is just to go out and verify that they have the number of parking spaces they claim they have. And then they also verify that they're erecting the required signage that is in a later section of the ordinance. Really, it's those 2 things. You visit the site, you check that off, yep, they're good to go, they have the parking they said they have, therefore they can have that occupancy.
And I agree with you. I think that probably 4 is a better number. I think of an average family, and a husband, wife, 2 children, they travel together. I think that 4 is a much better number than 2.5.
And it can get a little nuanced too when you have a situation like, we've got some units in town that are large, they might have 14, 15 bedrooms and they can sleep 45, 50 people, and they may have 7 or 8 parking spaces. Well, that wouldn't be supported under this proposal, but they say, well, how I support that is when I get a party that books and they say they're bringing 50 people, I make them bring at least 1 15-passenger van, for those people, so that parking doesn't become an issue. So it does get a little nuanced, and it's something we may have to think through a little bit more. But
yeah, I agree with 4 too, but I would like to see some examples, like, because you have a tremendous difference in the different layouts of driveways. You may have a home with a circular driveway, or you may have a home with 1 entrance driveway, or 2 entrances, or 3. I think we need to, and I think we've done this before in the past when we were discussing this, but we took and laid out different scenarios of how you could park in a different type of driveway. In other words, you can stack 2 cars here, you got a circular driveway, might be different, that kind of thing.
just using the dimensional requirements of the ordinance, the standard stall is 9 by 18. We can go out and kind of just field verify that, yeah, you can put 2 here, this circular driveway, we measure clearly, you get 3 here. We do that on a case-by-case basis. That's an easy exercise for staff to do, to verify that.
Right, I just think it'd be good that people know, so that when they come in and get a permit, they're not just trying to make up how that they're gonna hang cars out. They have some kind of guideline to go by.
Right, yeah, we can do that.
And would you like to see that in the ordinance?
Yes.
Or we can just put it in the permit application.
Yeah, but I would like to see it so that I can better, I'm saying 4, but I'm basing 4 on looking at other examples and other ordinances that actually pertain to bedrooms instead of guests. And when I looked at based on the number of bedrooms, the parking space requirements versus the way we've done it, based on the number of people, it kind of equaled out more to.
And I did look at some examples on the internet. I just picked some random rentals in the city.
Right.
And I said, how many are they advertising as their occupancy? 28. How many parking spaces do they say they have? 7. I said, okay, well, there you go. You got 4. So that's kind of how I approached it. And so I think 4 is a workable number based on examples I've seen in the city.
I'm comfortable with 4, but I think I also need to kind of be a little bit aware of that at some point there's got to be a break point. I'm just thinking about, especially when we get in the springtime, when we got the schools are out, there's much that are coming from colleges, and coming from high school weekends, just things like that. If you come up with 10 parking places, you've got 40 that 40, you can sleep 40 under this. If you work with 4, that puts you at 40, and then there's also certain break point, and maybe it's, maybe a lot of the things in here helps that. With, you want to look at an over excess, and maybe we just have to manage that as we go through and get a feel for that. But it's just sort of that, I can see where, hey, we've got, I've got two properties and I have 5 parking places that I have off-site. And I'm saying I'm using the same place more, you can end up with a difficulty. So then theoretically, you could have 40 as an occupancy. I'm not home on the number, I'm just saying that, we may have to look at some kind of, maybe
Are you talking
maybe
about for off-site parking? So we got to identify that they definitely have. Jim, we talked about that yesterday, about identifying that they definitely have off-site parking for the overflow.
Right.
And how are you going to do that?
They would have to provide us a copy of the lease agreement showing that they have the right to use so many spaces in that lot, or proof that they own the lot, like Mike was saying. So as part of the application review process, we would verify that they have it. They can't just tell us, I've got 5 spaces 6 blocks down the road. We're not going to just take the word for it.
it was just thought, say that somebody owned a piece of property that, say they own a house, and then they also have a piece of vacant property somewhere that qualify within the guidelines of the dust surface and all that. They say, well, hey, my house, 3-bedroom house, 4-bedroom house, I've got more than 10 parking places every check the box for off-site parking. So I can have 40 people in relative to the size of the house. I'm just saying, it's something we may think about. It's not now, but if this goes up, there's lots of stuff in here. Should take a lot of things out of play or give us a lot better opportunity to manage it. Parking is one of them, the trash and noise, but the noise kind of leads into that one. So I'm just in the conversation. I'm not nailed down hard, but I'm just saying, hey, it may be something we have to look at and see what it does in a year from now, like we've done with other things. If we have an issue, maybe we have to come back and revisit. I hope we don't.
Probably the biggest challenge that staff is going to face when reviewing these is if you get multiple applicants claiming the same lot.
Right.
So for example, if I own a lot somewhere and I can put 20 parking spaces on it, I put it out there, hey, come rent my parking spaces for your short-term rental. And if 10 applicants come in for short-term rental permits and they all claim they're going to use that lot, what we have to track is make sure that, we don't get 10 people claiming 30 spaces when there's only 20 in the lot. So that's going to be the challenge on our end, but that's part of it.
That is a challenge, but I think our biggest concern is that house, how many cars is being parked instead of it being parked all over the street and in people's driveways and that kind of stuff. I think that's the issue and the biggest worry. So if you do have a lot, say if one of the realtors have a overflow lot that they use, it doesn't worry me too much about using that same lot and count, because what we're going to look at when we get the calls and when the police officers go is this house is permitted for 6 cars and there's 10 cars on this lot. And so you are violating.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, so we go through the occupancy. Let's go over to the trash collection. Mr. Mahoney, you want to talk about that?
Well, We can, or then are you gonna go back to 7225 quiet hours? I thought,
leave that out.
well, I thought we were going in order, so
Well,
right after 7.224 is 225.
kind of jumped because
Yes.
we went into 226 with the
Yeah,
park.
yeah, but though, let's, if you can, and again, we're not wedded to 11 to 7, it may be midnight to 6, it may be whatever, but you all have received the calls from residential neighborhoods, now that we have 550 of these spread all over the city, that, hey, these guys are, out on the deck here, it's midnight and they got the boom box on. Okay? You've all got those calls. Okay? And, so, I don't know what you want to do, but that's why this is in here, because some of the other cities have similar items. They have quiet hours, that limits that. You've had complaints right here in this council room in the last 3 months, from others in Cherry Grove that were complaining about, noise and the damage to climbing over the fence into their pool, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure you remember all that. So, again, I'd like some debate and some direction, because again, we can put in here whatever you wanted to do, but we came up with this to try to solve the 3 biggest areas: noise, parking, trash.
So our quiet hours in this section says from 11 to 7 a.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's talk about this a little bit. Does anyone have problems with the hours? Does anyone on council have problems with the hours?
I think it's reasonable.
Reasonable.
I do.
Okay. Let's talk about, the conversation, and the people are sitting, on their back deck or just talking. And I know I'll use a prime example because I used it yesterday. I'm an early riser. I may be up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. I can go outside, and I live on a saltwater marsh, which across from me are condominiums. I can hear there are people in the condominiums talking. They're up drinking coffee, quiet, it echoes across. They're not disturbing me, and I'm not disturbing them. But if somebody called and complained, how are you going to handle that?
Well, the way we would handle that, and, Sarah may want to speak to this, or Jim, or whatever, our people were trained, they're experienced. We're not looking to go issue tickets on this sort of thing. A casual conversation that's going on, if we do have to respond, we may say, hey, can you guys kind of keep it down? But, we're not out to gotcha, on that sort of thing. I mean, if somebody calls and says it's after 12 o'clock and I just heard the car door slam next door because they just arrived and they're unloading the car, we're not going to issue a ticket for that. It's going to be the judgment of the person, and I don't know any other way to do it unless you start timing the decibels, and then it gets extremely complicated because, you got to look at wind direction and what's the relative humidity and what's the temperature and decibel meters and framing. So.
And Mayor, it was pointed out to us, and I think it's a legitimate concern, that the way this is worded, it says no discernible noise. Well, that's a pretty broad standard to me, because like you said, somebody could just be out having a quiet conversation, and if my neighbor hears it, that's a discernible noise. It may not be bothersome, but it's discernible. So we know we have to tweak that a little bit and flesh that out a little more, and come up with a different way to do that. And what we were trying to do is, even if a group of people turn off the TV and they don't have a boombox going, they may be out on deck enjoying a cocktail, telling jokes, laughing out loud, disturbing the peace during quiet hours. That's why we put conversation in there. But the word discernible is a little bit unwieldy, so we're gonna have to put some thought into that.
All right, so we're gonna address that. Any other comments on noise? All right, then we'll move down to trash collection.
Okay. I'll make one word for this. And let's talk a little bit about what's kind of, exacerbated the situation. Back in March and April, COVID-19 hit. And that's radically changed the dynamics of what's going on in garbage in the city of North Myrtle Beach. And what do I mean by that? There's a lot of people that, are still tired of, they were pent up and there was a lot of restrictions and they couldn't do things. And so a lot of them are renting the larger houses, including the VRBOs and the home away, and they're basically kind of self-isolated. A lot of those houses have pools, and you will see them in the grocery store. It'll be a couple of two. In the grocery bill, it's $1,000. And you'll ask them, what are you doing? Well, there's 20 of us here. We're basically going to be sort of self-quarantined. We're going to go to the beach, but we're going to cook and, swim in our own pool and kind of self-quarantine. Well, what happens when you do that? There's a lot more garbage generated. And then if they are getting some meals, they may be going through drive-through, or they may get pizza takeout or whatever. So there's a lot more garbage. So what we have done to try to address that as much as we can, at least in the short term, there is a beachfront route that basically covered the first 3 blocks of 9 miles of beach. And, basically what the beachfront route did is it was collected twice a week. But because of the excessive amount of trash that is being generated, we are now running the beachfront route 4 times a week. We're running it Friday, we're running it Saturday, we're running it Sunday, we're running it Monday. All right, because what happens, Saturday and Sunday are big checkout days. We will go run the route on Friday. Then the people check out. Well, if it's after we ran the route at 7 o'clock that morning, it's going to sit there. All right. Then we run it again on Sunday. Then we run it again on Monday. The problem is when you get into what were residential neighborhoods, and let's say their collection was on Thursday, okay, they clean the unit. It's put at the curb on Saturday or Sunday, and it sits there till next Thursday. All right. And some of the people sitting in this office have certainly been beating me over the head. I see some hands going up there. These bruises that you see me are from people like that. And I mean, I get it. It stinks. Maggots are in it. Raccoons are in it. It's spread all over the place. Okay. Now we've done that short time because it's rough times, man. I mean, oceanfront hotels and things like that would normally have been at 100%. We survey weekly, and you'll contact them, and they're at 30%. I mean, I get it. There's a lot of people struggling financially, but this is the new normal, and I'm hopeful that we're going to have a great fall. The bookings seem to indicate that, but this is going to continue. So what you have in front of you that, we will be bringing forward, assuming it is acceptable to you, we got to charge for that. I mean, I can't keep billing for twice a week pickup and picking up a beachfront route Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I just can't do it. I mean, you will break the garbage fund eventually.
Well, you take overtime on Sunday, don't you?
Well, it depends on the work schedule. But yes, I mean, over 40.
People being out sick due to COVID, we've had to bring people in overtime quite a bit.
Oh, I'm sure we're bringing people in. I mean, the other thing that you've noticed we've done, and, you know, we're in the process of changing that, we have extended our hours at the transfer station till 5 o'clock at night. And we've worked with some of the larger realtors, such as Elliott Realty and Hank, who have cell phone numbers. They have a cell phone number contact of someone in the house, so that they can say on Friday evening, if these people are checking out on Saturday morning, they can send them a text on your phone that says, hey, the garbage truck is coming by at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So if you've got stuff in the refrigerator you want to throw out, you might want to clean it tonight and go ahead and put it out so that we can pick it up. All right. So the garbage routes all over the city, whether it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday route, whatever, those have been transmitted electronically to some of the larger companies like Thomas Realty and Elliott Realty, and they're working to do that. Okay. It's not quite simple when it's VRBOs and whatever. And so you can see, as this rate schedule indicates, you know, we're going to, anybody that's got the short-term rental permit will have to pay these additional charges, so that we will collect that on Saturday and Sunday. All right. And we've got equipment changes we've got to make to do that. Because it's one thing to go to Windy Hill on Thursdays and pick up all the garbage that these two ladies over here that keep nodding at me that they put out. All right. It's a whole other thing on a Saturday and Sunday to go back into Windy Hill and pick up these 5 or 6 houses and then cross 17 in that truck on the Saturday and Sunday when traffic is heavy, and pick up some over there and then run over here and then run over there and then run over here. The large garbage trucks we have just don't work for that, you know, and we're going to have some new equipment, or we're going to have to modify some existing equipment. And we've actually had some smaller trucks come in that we've tried, because now we're going back and forth across 17, 9 miles, running to this VRBO and this home away and this one and that one. And it certainly increases our exposure of, you know, having to go across 17 when traffic's busy, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the proposal that we will be bringing forward to you. We just finished it this morning. You know, I'm giving it to you now so that you can study it and whatever. But as you can see, you know, I mean, basically, the rate's going to go up about $50 a month, assuming you have 2 cans, et cetera, because we're picking it up twice as much. Whoa.
Sorry.
Pardon?
Say something.
For short-term rental.
How do we determine how many cans that somebody has? Do we?
Well, yes, I mean, you know, I got pretty well lambasted. I think it was Monday night, kind of a nightmare, about that I had gotten an email that I hadn't responded to, and that had been forwarded by Nikki to me, or Councilman Fontana to me, and I did it during the meeting, and I sent it to everybody. When we get those complaints right now, what we're doing is it goes to the whole, it goes to Lynn Williams, it goes to Kevin, it goes to billing, it goes to whoever. We add a can and we add to their bill. Okay? So that, and of course, we're bringing forward, as requested, the other ordinance that you will study at a further date that is, hey, you can't have it flowing out of the can, you know, like you're doing. You know, you got to be able to shut the lid. And I don't know, this probably won't show. Can somebody see if like this would show on the screen? I don't know if they could see that with all this light.
Well, I think it's very important that we require short-term rentals to have enough rollout cans that will cover the amount of people that are using that home.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We could put,
I have 1 can, like a residential house, a 1 can for trash and 1 can for recycling. That was a whole trash for 10, 15 people.
No, since we've had these complaints and have addressed them, and we know, example of, if there's 8 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms, they need 3 teams or 2 teams. We already know that. So my thought was that we could incorporate that in here. So if you come in and get a permit to rent your house and you have 5 bedrooms, well, hey, you gotta have 3.
Well, and again, I'm trying to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Our public works department is very competent. In the sentence right in there that says the sanitation department will assign the appropriate rate schedule and frequency on the level of service in 7-227, okay? I think that works very well, okay? I mean, that's, we have a great sanitation department. We get a lot of compliments on them.
We get comments all the time about sanitation department, but, this is just, this isn't addressing any problems with them, this is just addressing the problems of short-term rentals when people leave and throw their trash on the ground and we all have to live with it.
Right. And I get that, but I just don't see why you need to put it in the ordinance and try to lock us down when it's a case-by-case basis what's on the situation.
So you can somewhere require that if you were renting a home with 15 people in it, that you've got more than one team.
Oh, absolutely.
Now,
Does it not work or what?
with this, wrap up some data on that and go back and look and adjust. I mean, there's going to be, like I said, there's going to be a lot of data to come out of this as we go and what on the trash volumes and, what size, kind of which one best, right? So we're not, it's like, it has to work.
Well, I have a suggestion too that, and this is just throwing this out here, I don't know if that would work or not, but like
Nikki, you need to get closer to your microphone, people can't hear you.
on the VRBOs and homeways and, not particularly the management companies, but the private ones. When we issue them a permit, is there some way that we can make them also, like, require them to put on, like, stickers on their trash cans that say, this has to be taken out, on this night or this night, so that they know, and they're not just throwing that out by the curb and it's sitting there for a week. I mean, I don't know if that's gonna work, but that's just an idea.
Well, that's a lot of work. I mean, I'm not saying we can't, but you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday routes. Now we're going to be picking it up Saturday and Sunday. We certainly can explore that.
Like I said.
I mean, yeah.
It's identifies to the renter.
Yeah,
that
you need to pull this can
This
out.
can needs to be pulled out.
So they're not doing it prematurely and, sticking that trash can out there on a Tuesday and the trash isn't being picked up till Friday. I mean, I don't
All
know.
right, Kevin, can you make a note and investigate that, what that would cost or?
Council, another thing we can do is we require a sign to be posted inside the unit that gives the renters information. We also add that to the interior sign.
That's right, you could do that.
That would help too.
You could do that. Is there any more discussion about the church? Do we pretty well cover
They said that they will double. If we improve it and, as expected, there's a lot more work, but if you cover the non-typical rural areas, which has now come about because we are near and home away, and get those residential sections and get that trash on, I guess, either Saturday or Sunday or Monday or Saturday.
I think that'll go, I mean, we may have to tweak, but that's going to go a long way towards solving the problems. I mean, I get it. When they put it out on Saturday and it's not picked up until Thursday, believe me, I get it. These two right over here have made sure that I get it, okay?
Hey, she likes to use that finger. Well, yeah.
Well, not in a negative way.
No, that's not a negative.
Well, Right.
So we have the short-term rental trash collection that we have covered. But we're moving to the short-term rental fire protection. It says in section 228, all short-term rentals shall be required to have operating smoke detectors inside and outside of each sleeping area and meet all applicable fire codes. Anybody have an issue or problem with that? Let's talk about the signage, Mike.
Okay.
That's the next.
Okay.
You want to explain, I will have to go look.
Right.
But would you like to explain about what's going to go with the sign?
Right. I mean, part of the problem we'll get into is we'll get a call on the unit and, it's the middle of the night, we're trying to look up the unit and it says, okay, it's owned by an LLC and the LLC is in Woodbridge, Virginia. And then you try to access it and it's a group of attorneys. Who do you call? So essentially this sign that would be on the unit would say, hey, this is the responsible party that can respond in the current draft, it's 30 minutes, okay? So it can be a VRBO unit, it can be home away, it can be whatever, okay? But we're not gonna call California at 2:00 in the morning and ask them to respond. They're going to have on the sign someone that here is local, okay? Whether they're hiring another realty company, whether they're hiring a citizen, whatever, so that we know who to call, okay? When the police officer rolls up on the site and there's an issue, that we can have somebody to call that can respond, okay? Now, they may not be able to resolve that issue in 30 minutes. And let me just give you an example. And these are real world examples, guys. A call at 2:00 in the morning, we roll up and there's 250 people in the house having a party. And everybody's maybe had a little bit too much to drink. Well, we can't wade into a crowd like that with 4 or 5 police officers. It's fraught with peril. And what are you going to do? Okay? But that person would then be noticed. Hey, tomorrow morning, after everybody sobers up and some of these go home, you need to evict this unit. All right? So somebody would have to respond within a reasonable amount of time. And that's what's on the sign, so that, when we roll up to this unit, that everybody knows this is who you're supposed to call.
But they're going to be called within 30 minutes.
They're going to be called as soon as we arrive on
They
scene.
may not resolve it, but they're going to be called.
They're going to be called, and, there's a procedure in here that if nobody answers, that's the whole strike procedure we're going to talk about at the end. But, that will do a lot to resolve some of these issues that are high risk to us and are very complaint driven. And so, it's there, you can read it, it's online, the street address, the STR permit number, so that we can track all this, who to contact, what's the maximum occupancy. If we roll up and it says 28 people and there's 250 in there, well, obviously it's a pretty large party. So, all that kind of stuff, the maximum number of cars that can be there. If it says there's supposed to be parking for 6 and there's 150 cars there, it's all that sort of information that would be available to our people in the middle of the night.
Okay. Anybody have any comments on council or like to see changes made? I'm satisfied with what they're proposing.
I think it's a great idea because I've had that issue next door to me for many years. So this would actually, help because once again, you're walking in there and nobody wants to take responsibility of who's rented the unit or what, what's going on. So this helps, our staff and our officers to deal with the situation that's going on. So it just it makes it simple.
Okay, everybody else?
I agree. I think it gives the neighbors, some comfort there. On one part, and on the flip side, especially with with the professional rental companies that we have. It kind of gives them a little more leverage or something to work with and backs them up some when they say, hey, look, you know, I think it's going to be a good thing for everyone.
Okay, very good. We'll move to the responsible party. We just talked about that. The responsible party, they would be the ones that would be called. We just discussed that. We'll move to short-term rentals advertising. Mr. Mahaney, you want to go over that?
Well, I mean, basically, this is just a coverall that, you know, if you fill out, you know, the stuff and say it sleeps 10, and then we discover, you know, an ad on the internet that says sleeps 28, obviously we've got an issue with that. And so that is kind of directed to handle that. I don't know, you want to elaborate any or?
Yes, it's basically making sure that they're not doing something under the table to advertise for more than they're permitted for. If we catch them doing that, that's a strike on, and could be grounds for a permit revocation.
Can we go back 1 second?
Sure.
I'm sorry, on the interior sign, can you make sure you made a note about the trash?
I didn't, but they did.
I mean,
Yes, ma'am, I put it, item I added item I, and garbage collection days.
Okay. thank you.
We covered 232, which would be if you're advertising more than permit says. All right, we'll move to the strike system. Mr. Payne, you or Jim or whoever that talk with other places.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jim might be able
Tell
to
us how you.
elaborate, but I think, for instance, the strike system that is patterned here actually is the one used in Mount Pleasant, correct? Would you like to come up and elaborate that? You know, it's a proposal.
Yeah, there's different communities handle this differently, but when we looked at Mount Pleasant, we thought they had a pretty good system. And it's basically, you know, it's not a gotcha system. It's a system where if you exhibit a pattern of behavior of violating the ordinances, then it's an escalating warning and strike system where it could eventually result in the revocation of your permit. And that process is appealable if somebody feels like their permit was revoked unfairly. They can appeal that to a committee that will be appointed by the city manager, an impartial committee to review those claims. So there is an appeal process in there. But what we don't want to do, and this was something pointed out to us by in some of the earlier comments we received before today, we don't want to set up a situation where there's a gotcha clause in there where, for example, if I operate a short-term rental and 99.9% of the time I'm doing it responsibly, but I get a bad tenant in there, the idea is not to have a situation where that bad tenant can rack up so many violations that I lose my permit over one tenant. That's not the intent. So it's a way to put some teeth in the ordinance. It's a way to make sure people are motivated to effectively manage their own units. But at the same time, it's also, we feel it's a system that is written to protect everybody.
In other words, if you don't like your neighbor and you don't like the house being right next door to you, you cannot call in 3 times in 1 week and think that you're.
Right.
No, and there's procedures to address that because let me tell you how we're dealing with it right now, because we've had some of that going on. And certain individuals brag to neighbors about, I'm going to get this person out of here, I'm going to get this resolved. Well, what we suggested to the party and what they did is they hired a lawyer, and they went and took the deposition of that neighbor, that what had been said, and then that lawyer notified that person and said, you know, this is what we got, and if you pursue this, we're going to pursue you civilly. And that has a tendency to end that. That happened, and we have not received one call from that party where we were being called nightly.
Okay, are there any comments from any of the council members concerning the strike?
I'm kind of concerned about the 30 minutes to respond before you get a strike. And I'm mainly looking at not major, real estate companies, because they would probably have somebody that can designate, and we have a lot of second homeowners that don't live here. And they rent their house in the summertime, and probably stay here in the wintertime, or stay here in summertime. They're not here. And I don't know who they would have to be available to be there in 30 minutes.
Well, they're going to have to hire somebody, and I'm okay with making it 45 minutes or whatever, but what, in my opinion, you can't stand is you've got an oceanfront unit that in the middle of July is renting for $20,000 for the week because it's needs 28. And this guy lives in Charlotte, and, you know, we can't wait for him to drive down from Charlotte if we've got 200 people in that house. So you got to hire someone locally, a rental company or somebody, or I don't know how it's going to work, because believe me, when they're lighting up the switchboard from 4 or 5 houses around it, 45 minutes is a long time for them to wait, and they got to get up and go to work at 6 a.m. the next morning.
I mean, how do we define respond? I mean, is that by
No,
somebody
be
through the phone?
Now,
It says here, be
well, I believe the way we worded it is that respond means that there is an initial attempt to correct the problem within 30 minutes. Now, that can be by telephone. Like if the responsible party says, well, I live an hour away, I'm currently an hour away, I can't be there in 30 minutes. But as long as let's say it's a noise complaint, I'm the responsible party, I get a call, hey, the unit you're responsible for, that you manage, there's a party going on, they're being loud, you gotta respond within 30 minutes. I pick up the phone and I call the tenants and say, shut the noise down. And if I do that within 30 minutes, and I respond, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to physically be on site.
Well, section 230, it says that party must be someone that can respond to the place when necessary to be on site within 30 minutes.
I don't think it means necessarily on
And when
site.
necessary.
They have to respond. They have to, like you just said, they have to pick up the phone. If they can't be there, they have to pick up the phone to that renter and say, hey,
That would be perfect. I just physically be there wouldn't be possible.
Maybe we can clean that language up, or what it says is that someone that can respond to complaints and when necessary, be on site. So it may not always be necessary.
Right.
That was our intent. Now, if we need to clean that up a little bit, we can.
and
Yeah, I'm not sure how we word it, but our whole intent,
we also talk about,
one of your call, you know, and say, hey, knock it out.
Sure.
we also talk about resolving the violation satisfactorily within 30 minutes. But that goes back to the party of the 200 drops. I mean, you can't, one person can't go into that house and get 200 drops out in 30 minutes. You're gonna have to allow them to evict them.
Yeah, we'll have to reword that some kind of way.
We gotta allow them to evict them the next morning or whatever. You can't put 200 drops on the road. So, no, it's. Any other problems?
I just think on regards to the, if you get called and you've got a big party up there, I think any real estate companies want to let the party up, and then the folks that are in the house, they'll be allowed to stay and leave in the morning, because we put them on the road and they get killed on the road.
Right.
But, people aren't staying there, they'll have to get an Uber, or they got to be premises, they can't hang out until daylight and raise Cain and disturb everybody. And send the responsible party that we talk about these, whether it's a real estate company or a VRBO owner is in Cincinnati, is going to have to designate somebody on this permit that's going to be the responsible party. And they'll be putting it on the exterior, if we see it according to this. So that if you've got a problem, then, or the police see that has a problem, they can call that responsible party, they can get in and address the issue. And that'll go a long ways.
Well, by my understanding, if you have a rental license or a real estate license or something, you are allowed to evict.
We are allowed to.
You're allowed to evict where if you designate your neighbor to be the person to call, that person does not have the authority to evict somebody in your house. Is that correct? Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, the real estate law is that.
But the real estate companies, the rental companies do have the right to evict.
But I don't know that an owner's representative would be denied that same right.
I'm not so sure.
But it might be that my preference would be if you have a designated person that's going to be responsible, that they're dealing with real estate and they're not the owner. Therefore, they should be licensed and to represent that owner in evicting these people. Now, if the owner is lived locally and he's renting his property to the RPO, he doesn't have to have a license if he's going to be the responsible party. I see that as a,
But that's their choice. If they want to go with the rental company or whatever, that's their choice. They can decide someone else.
Right, I mean, it's our, our intent, we were thinking through this, and it's like, well, if I own a unit that only accommodates 6 guests, it's probably not financially feasible for me to hire a full-blown real estate company to manage that unit, and pay the 30% or whatever they charge. I may be able to do that with a family member or a next door neighbor or a friend that lives nearby. But if I'm that owner and my unit sleeps 30 people, I'm probably going to hire a real estate company.
Right. That's it. Yeah. It's their choice. The penalty. Any person violating any provision of this article shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, and a fine conviction shall be punished in accordance with Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 1-6, General Penalty. Each day of any violation of this article shall constitute a separate offense. Anyone have any?
Well, I read misdemeanor, kind of raise the flag, for penalty of violating this, like not, being able to respond within 30 minutes, you might be charged with misdemeanor. That seems like kind of excessive, potentially a civil fine or something like that. I don't know, what's a misdemeanor?
Well, again, our intent on this is if you're violating the strike and penalty system, that system is tied to your permit. Where the misdemeanor might come in is if you're operating one illegally without a permit, we catch you, and you say, the heck with you, I'm gonna do it anyway, that's where we charge you with misdemeanor.
Well, maybe we
Can
can
you clarify that?
clear that, because
That needs to be put
Can you
in.
clarify that for us?
because it says here, any person violating any provision of this agreement is subject to a misdemeanor.
David, you got that? Yeah, you can get with Chris on it, who's listening, I assume, right?
Just for clarification also, if we go to the permit system for short-term rentals, do they still need a business license, or is this in lieu of the license, or is it on top of the license?
No, absolutely, they need a business license.
Okay.
That's state law.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, yeah. This is over the vote.
All right.
Okay. Are there any more questions, any more concerns that the council would like to share or talk about under this ordinance? No? Okay. Usually I will take a few comments from the public, and I will probably take about 4 comments if somebody wants to get up and say. Yes.
Mayor, members of North Myrtle Beach City Council, my name is Brian James, and my family has owned our college since 1973. Never once in these 47 years have I or any member of my family ever directly addressed City Council. However, I'm here today to share the tremendous negative impact one short-term rental has had on our quiet and Hill neighborhood. At least one of the council members owns or manages a short-term rental. If you own or manage a short-term rental, I request that you recuse yourself from Article 13. The short-term rental next to me has grossed greater than $45,000 between June, July, and August. With that kind of money at stake, you have a clear conflict of interest. If you do not live next to a short-term rental with a pool, it is unlikely, if not impossible, for you to fully understand the impact on the neighbors. I've witnessed vulgar sex acts in broad daylight, adults drinking to the point of passing out, days upon days of extremely loud and expletive-filled music. Music so disdainful that my 2 sons are not allowed in the yard or be on the porch. Noise is the #1 issue plagued in short-term rentals. Yet, the chaos short-term rentals have created in our quiet neighborhoods is perfectly legal. While Charleston and Myrtle Beach have very strong short-term rental policies protecting these single-family residents, North Myrtle Beach has none. With respect to Article 13, Section 7225 addresses quiet hours. 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. quiet hours are redundant with our existing noise ordinance. If you want short-term rentals to coexist in North Myrtle Beach neighborhoods, then the quiet hours for short-term rentals specifically must be extended, perhaps 24 hours. Section 7226 attempts to address parking and occupancy. Controlling occupancy with parking spaces is nonsensical to me. If 12 cars can park outside in 1,000 square foot home, 30 people would be allowed to stay there. How does 30 people in a 1,000 square foot single family home in a quiet neighborhood make any sense? Finally, Section 7223, violations of Article 13. 3-strike policy is unreasonable, unmanageable, and unenforceable. In the unlikely event any short-term rental has digressed through the 3-strike gauntlet, the rental season would likely be nearly over, and revoking the landlord's permit for 6 months would be of no consequence.
So we have a 3-minute,
I'm almost,
okay,
I'm trying to, there's no way I'm over 3 minutes.
and I'm just telling you that, I just know all that. But also, I need your name and address.
Okay, I've written it on the paper for you.
It doesn't matter, I need it for our record.
605 41st Avenue South, North Myrtle Beach, Windy Hill, 29518.
Okay, and your name?
Brian James. So what's the answer? I can solve this right here. The North Myrtle Beach short-term rental solution is simple. Adopt the same short-term rental policy as Myrtle Beach, right down the road. They do not allow short-term rentals in single-family resident areas, and short-term rental is any stay less than 90 days. Here I have a petition with 193 signatures of our local residents in North Myrtle Beach requesting exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you. And like I say, we're gonna only take 4. So whoever's in line, that's who we're gonna take. Also, make sure you give us your name and your address.
Sure. Patricia Keller is 43rd Avenue South Winfield. I'll be brief, just have a couple of questions. Is this ordinance for just VRBOs and Airbnbs, or are they also for the? All short-terms. All, okay, good, because I heard a couple of comments in it, and it's always alluding to VRB.
No, it's not short-term rentals.
Okay, perfect. So the trash collection, someone needs to be responsible for it. And so if it's a management company such as an Elliott or Thomas, they need to take charge because they're not doing it permanently. So something needs to be encompassed into this article saying that whoever is the rental agent on record needs to make sure this garbage is not laying on the street. You know, they come to clean the houses, the garbage is sitting right out there and we do nothing about it. And when we call those companies to complain, they say it's not under their purview. That's unacceptable. And as far as the gentleman before me, it is part of the, there is a noise ordinance for this town already. So you can just add, you know, you can just say section 72255 quiet hours. Our ordinance section 1270-74 already covers this, so there shouldn't be any question on that whatsoever. As far as the interior signage, I would recommend, but I believe it was already suggested about trash collection and recycling, because there is recycling and people are not doing recycling properly. Not supposed to put it in bags, et cetera. So that kind of information on the interior side for the municipal ordinance, whatever the trash collection ordinance is. I would also recommend putting up the discharge of fireworks. It's not permitted within the town because every night now we hear fireworks all over the ocean front, sometimes midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Last but not least, I would like to also encourage that the interior sign let the renters know that we do have leash laws. Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name's Pam. I'm here at Villas in 1.1.
Pam, would you get closer to your microphone?
Here at Villas is located at 3400 and 3401 North Ocean Boulevard. And Waterpoint 1 is located at 4619 South Ocean Boulevard in our county. Our homeowners are concerned about the maximum occupancy. Parking is already controlled by the condo association board. Their number of spaces are already limited, and we manage and monitor that parking situation. At Pier Watch, you have 6 bedrooms. Your ordinance limits 12 people. Most of those units hold 18 to 20, which would suppress property values and rentals. At Waterpoint 1, there's 3 bedrooms. Most of those units hold 8, and your ordinance would limit them to 6. So they're also concerned about rental revenue and property values and that as well. They already manage it. We limit their parking and we police their parking appropriately. We have the association and board governs our association. So they would like to see that portion of the ordinance only apply to class 1, not class 2 apartments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of Northern Council. My name is Paul Jones. I live at 701 41st Avenue South. My wife and I have lived in Wheat Hill since 1978, and my father was here in the 60s. We have owned businesses in North Long Beach for over 15 years. My wife has worked for small water banks in the area for the last 10 years of North Long Beach. I make my living in the resort tourism industry covering the Southeast. We are not against South on short-term rentals, only in our own communities like Winnie Hill. I do not want to see the community turn into a retirement bedroom community. We enjoyed watching Michael Davis go down our street in the 80s and can't play with it. My wife and I enjoyed living in a resort community and are still very active in that outdoor lifestyle. I do not expect to open a golf cart business in my R1 zone on French Orange or go to hipcamp.com to rent out RV sites in my backyard, as I have a sewer hookup and a electrical outside and an outside shower or tip kit. This would be a lot less disruptive than remodeling the home at 608 23rd Avenue, turning the $2.5 garage rooms that can sleep 21 people, then putting a swimming pool in an area that works as an amphitheater. Three-quarter of the time, the street has been rented problems at a resident. And that's what Brian is a backdoor neighbor. 7 cars, 4 golf carts, home next to it, 4 cars, a boat and a golf cart. A home next to it, 3 cars and a golf cart, with no street parking in the home, and 1 weekend. The rental company comes to clean the house and just puts the garbage in 2 containers that are there overflowing with something. There's a pool in the townhouse complex on 41st West, and 1 kind of home on 41st across the street from Brian with no problems. So it's not that pool. I only found about no short-term rentals in Nikki last November or so, at one of our neighborhood meetings. And I'm speaking because Smitty Little that owns the lot right next to this, he actually owns 2.5 lots all the way to the Pinecrest. He told me about the short-term rentals, and I never realized all my years of working on beach that short-term rentals could be allowed in all the residential areas. I just feel that, being in the areas I work in Asheville and a lot of the other higher-end areas, that not allowing short-term rentals will only raise our property values.
I just got one question. Brian and you've lived here for how long?
We've been in Winnie Hill since 78.
Since 78. Okay, and was anybody living in homes on your street when you were living?
Never. It's mostly part-time local. Smitty that owns the house right next to Ranger Thompson's old house, John's house, and the house behind that, there are full-time rentals. They do long-term lease.
Well, because I've lived in Winnie Hill since 1974. And ever since I've lived there, there's been people renting their houses on streets. I mean, it's not like you moved in and then people started renting. You knew they were renting before you moved in. You didn't know anybody was renting in Winnie Hill in that area.
In my area, Winnie Hill is never been.
All right, so you have nobody had a summer home there, people came, nobody that, everybody lived there permanently.
That's what we love about that area, is the part-time loans.
So people have been abusing their home from, what I'm trying to get is that we all got to learn to live together, we all got to understand that we have these homes in Winnie Hill and all over the place. I mean, I live there, I know what you're saying. And people have been using these homes. The home directly in front of me is a second home, and there are people from West Virginia and their families, and they all come down and they enjoy that beach house.
And that's what I love about
And we've got to enjoy our beach homes. I understand that. And I know you got a problem. So, we just can't totally do away with allowing people to not rent their homes or allow people to use them. They're going to do that. My neighbor's going to do that continuously. But with this new ordinance, we should be able to control the issues and the problems that you're having.
Myrtle Beach, they've got an ordinance that does not allow it.
Well, we're not Myrtle Beach. You don't live in a neighborhood like that, that's pretty sure about. I'm sorry. So what we're trying to do is address the problems that you're having, because I don't want you to live in that. I understand what you're saying. If I have a problem with the house in front of me, I call the police. But we have to learn to live together because we didn't find a gated community. I knew that for the privilege of living in walking distance of the ocean, that I was going to have to put up with some of the things that I particularly don't like. Maybe people coming in and out every week, a different group coming in and out. But we've got to work, and you've got a problem, we're going to address that problem. I want you to understand that. But I want you to understand that we just can't go and just change zonings because you've got a next door neighbor that has a property that you don't particularly like, or that you don't want there.
You're gonna lose your permanent residents. If you allow short-term rentals all around us, you're gonna lose us.
Don't need it.
Well, I just want you to understand that we all live in this neighborhoods with a mix of second homeowners. Our second homeowners are greater, as far as, we have more second homeowners than we do full-time owners that live in this community. I mean, that own in this community. So that's why it's got, Myrtle Beach may not. Myrtle Beach has motels. We have homes. We have short-term rental homes. We're two totally different cities. And so we can't always follow what each other does. But we're going to try to work on the problems that we're having, because we realize there's problems.
Well, I chose like you to live in the video section of North Beach. I did not want to live in North Beach. And my concern is that we turn into North Beach. Because when I travel, I make sure people realize I do not live in North Beach, I live in North Beach. So we're on the edge of explosion in North Beach of people coming in and buying on our street alone. There's going to be a lot of houses torn down, and I enjoy living in a neighborhood like what you said, with people coming in on the holidays. My concern is developers coming in, buying property like Rachel's house, that is a split level, turning into 21 sleeping units and running a retail business out of the heart of the neighborhood. That's what I'm concerned. I love everything else you said. I totally agree with what you said. I think what we have to look at is the value of what we have. And that is protecting our communities. And these guys make a living off of short-term rentals. I just think that those of us who live here need to protect, because I don't want to be part of a homeowners association.
I understand, and that's exactly what we're trying to do here.
That's all I want to come to let you know, that I feel that in our own community, we need to have a few restrictions, and commercial, short-term rental is commercial.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And we do live in a great area. Yeah, we love when we get on. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. I got three. Have I got three people standing up there? Okay. Then those three people come on down, and that's it. And I hope it's not repetitive.
You have to forgive me, it's done sometimes, I've spoken in front of so many people since I'm working in a color. My name is Hillary Stedinger. I'm originally from Conway. I've lived in North Beach for the past 2 years. I live
Pretty different.
I live on a home at 1100 North Ocean Boulevard and 4404 North Ocean Boulevard in Cherry Grove. I'm just going to read my notes if you don't mind. I have worked in the hospitality industry for 4 weeks since I moved here. So I worked for a local vacation rental company. They're very good at training me. I've worked a lot of different experiences. Met a lot of you actually from working for that company. So I'm just going to start out with an example here. The city manager, I know, he loves his sports groups, have the sports complex. In my experience in group sales, you can have a team of 28 people dropped off by bus at a single family residence on the oceanfront. They may only have one vehicle there for the coach for the whole week, plus graduate stay at a resort like Via Vista and come pick up the team every day. So only one vehicle in a house sleeps 28 people. That following week, you may have a family stay at that same property, maybe they only have 12 people and have 6 cars spent. So it's a big variation between 28 people that the house accommodates on paper that maybe would stay there with 28 people 1 week, following week, do not have that many people. My concern is that if parking is wrapped up in occupancy, that would hinder the owner accommodating both of those guests in that example. Mrs. Fontana also said that she would like to see them parking on sidewalks, certainly nobody should park on the sidewalk. Integrated beach houses can stack parking 3 vehicles deep to accommodate those guests that the house occupies, that the house can accommodate. And Mr. Kavanaugh's right in suggesting keep those two separate. So there's three concerns that you made as you mentioned: noise, parking, and trash. The homeowner really only has control over the parking. He can't control if the guest obeys the rules and sign they have inside the rules, trash carts out on certain days. So it seems that it's the city's responsibility to help the owners control noise and trash, rather than putting up sole burden on the homeowner and implementing a strike system. And as for strike violation, it's an unjustified complaint could result in a warning. And how can you regulate ownership of property and handling new property in the neighborhood, especially since there's a big variation of types of properties, as what you discussed. So I just have three things that I wanted to post to the city. The first one is, why was the decision made to limit staff parking with just one vehicle? The second is, what recourse does the homeowner have for failure, if the city fails to pick up trash on a certain day, and that results in a strike against the homeowner? And as far as signage, without a permit process, couldn't you have the same sign applied for business license on every home? Sure. That would alleviate the need for the permit. That's all I really have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, hello, my name is Dixon Withers Julia. I live at 2407 Neps Drive in North Long Beach. And my comments are really related to my neighborhood, Pinewood Acres. Those of us who lived in that neighborhood for years had no idea that short-term rentals were even a possibility in Pinewood Acres. 2 years ago, this surfaced when a property on Metz Drive became a short-term rental. You'll know that Pinewood Acres is on the canal side of Route 17. At present, we have 2 properties that are listed in Pinewood Acres as short-term rentals. The owner of the place that's next to me has a rental. He also rents his permanent residence on Watson. He and his family travel in a travel trailer. What I would like to see for our neighborhood is a zoning overlay to prevent short-term rentals in the neighborhood. And that it's a not high density area. And for years, there have been no short-term rentals. So that is my comment, comments about trash.
Does your neighbors have their home on like a VRBO?
Pardon?
Do they rent it through a rental company or do they rent it through?
It's a VRBO.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
VRBO. And the comments that were made about trash and that sort of thing are apropos. This place is next to me. Nikki has helped me. Ms. Mahaney has delivered an extra trash container over there. 2 are not enough because sometimes there are 3 changes of groups a week. So we still have things filed on the street. Anyway, I won't go into the rest of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
And look, we are working with this short-term rental. There has been talks about overlay zones for short-term rental only. There has been talks about that. So we're not saying that that will happen, but we have to be very careful. People have a right. They have to use their property. They have that right to put their property on home again or VRBOs and that type of thing. So what we've got to do is have an ordinance that helps us manage the problems more. And so.
Jim Shortle, 2812 Shipwheel Drive. I'm representing the president of the Sequoias One Homeowners Association, which is at 1806 North Ocean Boulevard. Sequoias is one of the older, well, not one of the older, it's 42 years old, been sitting there, and it's just been doing real good. Some of this stuff is going to drastically affect us, though, to the negative. I got a few notes here. One is on the definition of short term. I suggest you change it to 90 days, as the other gentleman said. That conforms to the state law, the differentiation between a rental contract and a lease. And that would normalize that situation so people get confused. The other thing I suggest is maybe look at your fee to be per bedroom. Start at $100 for a 2-bedroom and add something on, because apparently it's quantity of bedrooms is where the problem is. And it looks like, the VRBO and the home away and that stuff is the motivating factor here. I agree with Councilman Kavanaugh. Parking and occupancy, they're two totally separate things. What you haven't taken into consideration is the fishermen that bring their boats. That takes up space, but it ain't people. So you put a limit on a house and just count the numbers when you do the inspection. Count how many cars fit in there and say that's the limit, no more. The other thing is visitors. We have situations where somebody rents the expensive beachfront location and all of their friends rent cheaper second and third floor, and they amass at the beachfront location and they all bring their cars. So if you limit the number of vehicles on the property, it's solved. Then you let the homeowner limit the number of people. If you want to limit the number of people inside there, our HOA has counted bed space. We had situations where 3 families come in for a 3-bedroom. Mom and dad each got a bedroom, and 16 kids were sleeping in the litter. Okay, well, they split they split the $2,000 a week. So we went in and we counted beds. The capacity in your unit is how many bed spaces you got. And I know there's one over at Sequoias, there's 2 that's got 16 beds in it. The HOA wasn't happy about that over there. We have limited it to 7 in a 2-bedroom and 10 in a 3-bedroom, up to. My 2-bedroom is equipped to sleep 4 people, and that's all I let in. So to set the occupancy on the beds, what the homeowners do is just go with parking. Think about trailers. The other thing is noise. Haven't addressed daytime noise. The city does have a really nice noise ordinance, but the police should be trained on it. There's some other agreement with Ducks and some people up Main Street that is being enforced, and it's throughout the city. But let them know that, we get noise from across the street all the time, and it's apparently not enforceable. Last but not least, on a responsible party, the state does have a law to represent an owner in any capacity or pay. You either have to be a licensed real estate agent or a licensed property manager. Property manager license isn't a big deal to get, but it is. You can't just hire a neighbor down the street and pay him to take care of your unit. All right. Thank you. I applaud the effort.
Thank you.
I mean, even our little places have problems with 18 kids.
Thank you so much. Okay, I thank all of you for being here. Does anyone else on council have anything to say? I really do appreciate it. We hear your concerns. I received a lot of the emails. That's why we're here today, is that all of us have put your concern. And we're going to try to work through this. If this don't work, we'll find something else that will. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you.